Welcome to the LD Aviation podcast, where we talk with industry leaders, innovators, and professionals who help shape the future of business aviation. Meanwhile, here at LD Aviation, we provide scheduling, dispatch, trip support, and operational services to flight departments around the world. And one of our goals with this podcast is to help schedulers, dispatchers, pilots, and all aviation professionals learn from the people who have really shaped and built this industry. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Ralph Vasami, CEO of Universal Aviation and Air Culinaire. Ralph's story is really unique in business aviation because he started with Universal as a 17-year-old intern, and he spent 4 decades helping guide that company through growth, change, all you can imagine over the last 40 years. Throughout his career, Ralph has really played a significant role in shaping some of the most recognizable services in business aviation here in the United States. During his time leading Universal, he helped guide the company through decades of growth in international trip support and other aviation services before that part of the business was ultimately sold. And today he continues to lead the organization, but they're focused on aviation hospitality, customer experience in the catering and FBO realm. His passion for culture, innovation, and service excellence has remained a constant throughout this whole journey. And today's conversation, we're going to discuss that journey from intern to CEO. We're going to talk about some leadership lessons. We're going to talk about customer expectations and really how those have evolved. And what he sees ahead for the future of the business aviation industry. So, Ralph, thank you so much for joining us and welcome.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. A pleasure to be here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm super excited to hear all about this because many people know you in the industry and have for a long time. But I bet many people don't know that you had been at Universal so long. So tell us, how did you get started? Like, what was the internship? How did you find that?
So that was back in 1977, actually. I was a high school, I was in high school at Woodlands High School up in White Plains, New York, where I'm from.
Okay.
And they had a special senior program where you can do a project of your choice, of your interest.
Yeah.
That would be credit for not taking certain subjects like English and social studies, which wasn't of interest to me at the time.
Yeah.
So I chose meteorology because I always had a love for the weather.
Okay.
And growing up in New York, you get the 4 seasons, so I was able to experience all the different weather elements. And at the time, Universal offered a internship to a couple of students that had done this even before me.
Okay.
So I called them and said, "Are you interested?" And they said, "Yeah, you can be here 4 a.m.
Oh.
until 7 a.m." It was 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. And then after 7 a.m., I went on to school Monday through Friday.
Oh
So
my
I
God.
started there at 4 a.m. and basically just listening. I wasn't allowed to talk to the pilots or do anything. So I was just listening to phone calls and tearing and filing weather maps. This was way before anything digital. So
Sure.
that's how it started. It was through a high school internship program.
Wow. Shows how important those internship and high school programs are.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, with aviation, you said meteorology was interesting to you, but had you had any interest in aviation before that?
Not really. As a young kid at the time, I was always enamored by the TV guys. And so the first love was maybe a TV or radio or something in the media.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
once I got into the internship with Universal and started learning about aviation and how the weather forecasts, how important they were to the pilots at the
Mm-hmm.
time, how much they relied on the information that we were providing them to help them make better informed decisions, and the challenges of the flights. I started to get more and more enamored with aviation over the
Mm-hmm.
media.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then after the internship, you probably had to graduate high school. Did you just go straight into Universal?
Yes. So what happened was I graduated high school. That program ended, and they hired me over the summers just to
Okay.
make a few dollars. So I worked over the summers, And at the end of, I went to school in Vermont, received my meteorology degree at the University of Northern Vermont back
Okay.
in '82.
Mhm.
And basically, my old boss at the time said, just let us know when you graduate, you're in, you're hired.
Nice.
So I actually never even did a resume in my life. I never had to put a
Awesome.
resume out. Yeah, I went right from the internship to summer work, right into Universal as a staff meteorologist in, I think it was late 1981 when I
Okay.
graduated and joined. Yeah.
I love it. That's
Yeah.
so cool. And what a cool way that Universal obviously saw potential and just kept up with you. Okay, I should probably know this, but when was Universal started? When did
Universal
it
actually started in 1959 in
1959.
Dallas, Texas. Thomas Evans is our founder. It
Okay.
quickly moved to Houston in 1960.
Okay. All right.
Right. So it was around for about 17 years before my internship.
Before you came in. Okay. Sounds good. If you could kind of name one of the top one or two things that maybe has changed between when you started until now, like that maybe had the biggest impact on your customers, your clients.
I guess for the customers, a lot has changed, obviously, especially in operations, weather services, the trip support,
Hmm.
with the changes in the aircraft types and the ranges they fly today. The missions are much more complex
Hmm.
to a degree, and sometimes less complex because they're longer range and they don't have to make as many tech stops.
Sure.
But if you look at just all of the technology gains in the airplanes, obviously customer demands and requirements and expectations change along with that.
Hmm.
And so we had to adopt a culture of continuous adoption and
Yeah.
adapting to these changes in the market. And the way we did it, it sounds 101, but it's the truth. Just listen to the customers.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yep.
just listen, understand their needs, okay?
Hmm.
Don't take anything for granted.
Hmm.
Don't try to get ahead of the game. Just listen and learn and apply.
All right.
But I think one of the most valuable lessons over the years is
Mhm.
we focused on what didn't change.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, everybody gets wrapped up in change, appropriately so. But the thing that didn't change was the human element of our business. And it really comes down to people serving people. And that has not changed at all. If anything, it's become even more important in the age of technology.
Sure. When
Yeah.
we're no longer really in person with most people, and that,
Yeah,
but you still need that connection.
exactly. We're living more in a digital age and phone calls and Zooms and all this. We never had that back then.
No.
The pilots used to walk in the office, that we used
Wow.
to brief them. We used to hand draw weather charts
Oh
and
my
we'd
God.
brief them personally in the office.
Wow.
Yeah, I started before fax machines. We actually had to deliver weather maps manually and put them in the customers' mailboxes at White Plains Airport. And we had some people down at Teterboro
Okay.
doing the same thing.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was much more hands-on and personal.
That's very cool. And maybe that brings me to my next question because I was going to ask you, when new people are coming into this industry, they probably don't, well, they don't remember because they weren't there. They probably might not even know that that was happening. Maybe one or two things you could tell them or remind them of?
I guess it just comes down to just focus on what hasn't changed. I mean, when you think about it, at the end of the day, okay, in any service business, especially ours, all right, we're global too. So we are supporting people all over the world.
Yeah.
And it comes down to some simple things that I've always kept sacred is that, effective communication, at the end of the day, it's not written or spoken, it's felt, right?
Yeah.
It's how you make people feel.
Right.
And that hasn't changed. And so when new people come into the business, yeah, they come in and they're way ahead technology compared to us, but we still teach them the art of how to make people feel
Yeah.
good about interacting with us. And the culture part, which I know we'll get to, was ended up playing a very important part for us to keep that spirit alive over decades.
Yeah, which is hard. I mean, that takes a lot of work, just keeping culture. But yeah, we're going to talk about that. Was there a point when you were like, yeah, I want to lead this company? I'm going to be here long term. I want to lead this. I want to be the CEO. Was that any of a goal at the beginning, or was it more like, um, I don't know, just kind of naturally happened?
So it was not a goal from the beginning.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, as a staff meteorologist in White Plains, the company's headquartered in Houston,
Hmm.
where I've been for a long time now, still am. It was the furthest thing from my mind. As a matter of fact, I almost left a couple of times because people offered more money here or there
Sure.
and things like that. And when you're low man on the totem pole, you know how it works.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah.
I guess if I look back, the culture even before my leadership or the current team, they were always very employee centric.
Hmm.
They cared
Hmm. Yep.
and they allowed flexibility with crazy hours that we worked back then. I guess it
Yeah.
was just something in my mind that said, these are good people to work with and for,
Hmm. Hmm.
stick it out.
Yeah.
If it becomes unbearable, don't. So then the progression went from a staff meteorologist to I became like a supervisor, shift supervisor, things like that. But the real growth for me happened when we wore two hats back then.
Hmm.
Any office manager or supervisor, we were also responsible for sales and customer support. So
Okay.
I ended up with a sales territory where I'm now with no training whatsoever, by the way, just going out there and trying to grow the company.
Hmm.
That's kind of where I excelled
Okay.
and
Yeah.
started putting me on the map. It wasn't that I was the greatest forecaster in the world, but I excelled in sales and customer relations. Again, going back to what I said, how to make people feel. Um, and that kind of put me on the map for potential leadership type positions. And then I called and said, hey, are you interested in coming to Houston and being part of a leadership team? Greg Evans is the current owner. His father, Tom, who started the company, passed away years ago. And when
Okay.
Greg and I are the same age, so when he came to a certain age where he was going to lead it, he wanted to build his own leadership team.
Sure. Yep.
And he's very sales and customer centric as well.
Hmm.
Matter of fact, he's probably the best at it. And so he kind of surrounded himself with people of like minds when it
Yeah.
comes to sales, operations, customer service. And that's how it kind of grew. And then at that point, when I became part of his team,
Hmm.
I started thinking more about maybe, upper management and larger leadership roles.
Nice.
Yeah,
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, Janet, I love that because I think that it reminds people that you don't necessarily have to go to school, to business school, and aim for that CEO position right in the beginning. There are
yeah,
ways to work your way up.
that's correct. But I'll say this. I did adopt early on
Hmm.
lifelong learning.
Yep.
And, with a degree in meteorology, it's only going to take you so far when it comes to
Right.
leadership and upper management. So I can't tell you how many hours and seminars and other courses that I took along the way to make sure that I sharpen those skills the best I could because I don't have a degree to hang on the wall, but
Yep.
it was a lot of good learning, listening, learning, and applying. So lifelong learning really supported my advancement over the years.
Okay. Good point. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a ton of good classes out there, online and in person.
a ton. And the other thing too is don't be afraid to ask for help. Many people don't want to raise their hand because they think it's a sign of weakness. It's not, it's a strength.
Yeah.
So if I don't understand something, I'm the first to raise my hand and say, help me understand. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? I feel that's a strength, not a weakness.
Yeah.
So it was just a continuous learning, which I'm still doing today. Even in my old age, I'm still
Right.
continuing to live and learn.
Well, it probably would get boring if you didn't. Like
That's right.
right?
That's
Do you
right.
ever miss doing the actual meteorology part of it?
I do when there's a storm.
Yeah.
Like back in the Northeast, my father will call me, "Hey, we're going to get this snowstorm," and blah blah. And I'm down here in Houston. I can't, and I kind of I wish I was up there trying to, because those were the challenging forecasts when we were
Mm-hmm.
on the phone with the pilots. Those are heavy thunderstorm type environments. If it
Mm-hmm.
was clear, sunny all day, it was more boring. But
Sure.
during those big storms, yeah, oh yeah, I miss it.
Yeah. That's fun. Oh, that's cool. Okay, I want to switch over a little bit more onto the company culture part that we had indicated we were going to talk about. And you have talked about, company culture really drives that success. You mentioned that that has helped Universal move forward and be successful. What to you does a strong cultural culture like actually look like on a day-to-day basis?
So I'll start with this.
Hmm.
Early on, I used to think culture was a joke.
Yeah.
I mean it. Okay. I was, oh, well, culture, it's all about strategy, it's all about operations, and taking care of customers. I was wrong.
Okay.
Um, when I started to understand how company culture can actually move an organization forward in a big way,
Yeah.
I started to take it seriously.
Hmm.
And again, in the spirit of lifelong learning how to, so I brought in some mentors
Okay.
and some cultural advisors that helped me see that most employees, and again, we're all around the world,
Hmm.
most employees and most people will support a world they helped create, okay, versus
Okay.
one that's just handed to them.
Yeah.
And so we had to create an environment where how do we galvanize a global culture in the spirit of moving the organization forward? And
Yeah.
some of the things I learned and applied was you always should tie it to a business problem.
Hmm.
A
Okay.
business problem that everybody can see or problems, all right? So otherwise it's just kind of propaganda, nice stuff and rah rah rah. You don't want to
Okay.
make it rah rah. You want to really tie it to the betterment of the business going forward.
Hmm. Okay.
And one of the things we did at the time was we needed to differentiate in order to win and grow the company because we got to a point where it was almost commoditized. Trip
Yeah.
support, FBO services, things like that. There was a lot more competition.
Sure.
So how we did it and why it worked was we created a global strategy. As the CEO, I personally delivered it to all of our bases around the world here in Houston and went out and did it
Hmm.
and asked them to create their own goals, their own offices or departments, whatever they were in, that
Okay.
would line up to that strategy.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that was year one. Year
Hmm.
two, once we had that, we ended up tying their individual goals.
Individual meaning like individual employees.
Yep. It
Okay.
came right
Okay.
down to individual employees, how they were then going to support those department goals, how they were going to support the company goal to
Hmm.
differentiate and win.
Yeah.
And then it came down to core values, okay, but core values that could be lived, like you mentioned, day to day
Hmm.
through their behaviors, their actions, and their attitudes.
Hmm.
This was a 3 year journey, Lindsay. It
Wow.
was not something we just did overnight.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, it created an environment of alignment.
Hmm.
It created an environment of the employees really understood how they fit in
Yeah.
and how they belonged to something bigger than just their jobs.
Yep.
Okay, so it really, when I look back, that was probably one of the best leadership moments. We'll get to the other one when we talk about COVID later, but
Okay.
it really created a culture of accountability, but it also created a culture of alignment and
Hmm.
people all trying to do the same thing. So whether you were in Japan or Singapore or Europe or Houston,
Yep.
everybody was speaking the same language. Everyone had those shared and common goals. Everybody was taking care of the customers in a more, I hate to say a standard way, but in a more uniform way.
Sure.
And how we measured it was 95% of the compliments that came in from customers were no more product centric anymore. It wasn't, oh, your flight plans are the best or
Mm-hmm.
your weather briefings are better than the other guys. It was all about our people and
Nice.
how the people executed, made them feel, went the extra mile. You know,
Yeah.
we're in a service business. The product service, important, of course, but that was sort of the commodity. The differentiation came through the actions, the behaviors, and the attitudes of our people.
That is
So
awesome.
that's where culture became so important to us and still there today.
That is so cool. I love it. I mean, accountability is huge. Um, did you find that during that 3 year period, you had some people that were like, hey, I just don't align with that, and they kind of moved on?
Oh yeah.
And then, yeah,
Oh
okay.
yeah. There was some people that, you know, they wanted to stay the old way and
Mhm.
not change, and some of that's normal.
Yeah.
But it was very few at the end of
Hmm.
the day. I mean, there was a lot of excitement around this. You know, a lot of times accountability becomes a negative word. Oh, they're looking at me, or they're, you know, they wanted that level of accountability because they had their goals. It was their personal goals aligned to
Hmm.
this. This is what they
Hmm.
wanted to do,
Yep.
you know, to help. And the year three, when we actually went around again, they actually presented to us. They were so
Cool.
excited to present to us. We didn't have to talk. We were like listening because they took pride in what they wanted to do to contribute to the organization's success. And right there I knew that this worked.
I love
Yeah.
it. I think that's so cool. Now, how did you keep that though? Because I could get the momentum, for 1 year, 2 year, 5 years or something, but you're talking 40 years now that Universal's been going strong. How did you maintain some of that?
So it takes an effort, there's no question. And a lot, this was originally done about what I mentioned with my leadership about 15 years ago.
Okay, all right.
Before
So,
that, it was a little more loosey-goosey and everything else, but Universal had different competitive advantages way back.
okay,
We really did because of our, first company to do this kind of stuff. We always
yeah,
maintains a leadership position. We had
right.
volumes that we could leverage, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that stuff started to go away. We had to, rethink how we're
Yeah,
going to win in the marketplace.
yep.
All right. So to answer the question, in order to sustain it over time,
Mm-hmm.
you have to reinvent at the right times. You just can't take it for granted.
Yeah,
Now, I
okay.
will admit, when COVID hit, it
Yeah,
did put a damper on, continuing that because nobody was traveling and everybody was hunkered down.
yeah,
And so we had to, after COVID and then the aftermath and everything else, we're just now starting to pick it back up.
right.
It's
I
been
feel like,
several
yeah,
years where it's sort of, unfortunately, hit a little bit of a brick wall due to that.
yep. That was hard. Well, in so many sectors. I mean, even, school sectors and work sectors, everybody was now working from home.
Yeah.
It is harder to get that everybody move towards the same goal.
Yeah, and we almost lost the company during COVID because, we weren't eligible for the PPP type stuff. Nobody was flying.
Yep.
So that was the other part of the leadership was trying to lead the culture through that.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think a lot of why we were able to get through
Mm-hmm.
was because of the strength in the culture that we developed beforehand. So the
Okay.
passion to get through, that was now the shared and common goal. We need to
Okay.
get
Yeah.
through this. We'll find a way.
Mm-hmm.
People took pay cuts. We furloughed people. I took a 60% pay cut for a year. Yeah, we all did what we had to do, but we did it together
Mm-hmm.
in alignment as again as a shared goal to get it through. So I think some of that cultural strength
Mm-hmm.
was a real catalyst to help us through
No,
COVID.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I suppose that, that really does make sense. I mean, if they're loving the company and they want it to stay, they're willing to go that extra mile
And
so
they
that we
did.
and be okay on the other side. Yeah, that was a rough time. I mean, there's nobody flying. But then when it came back, there were so many additional pieces that we had to look at, like all of the health forms and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that was a lot.
No, you're right. I mean, operationally, it's funny when because you say that, but operationally, when we did bring people back,
Mm-hmm.
because of all the different regulations
Mm-hmm.
and everything, it was almost like we had to train 300 flight coordinators over again while
Yeah.
customers were calling in expecting service and gung ho about flying again. We
Yeah.
almost had to retrain the entire team.
Sure. And it was almost retraining, like that stuff was changing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. I mean, red countries, yellow countries, you can't come from this country to this country. Yeah, it was a daily,
Yeah,
new rules were coming out. Yeah,
absolutely.
crazy. And you're right. The customers expect you guys to know all of that when it could be a brand new regulation. And yeah,
Yeah,
crazy.
and we were doing webinars back then, and I
Hmm.
think it was one of the best things we did. You may have joined a couple of those, but we had 400 people on these webinars, 400, 450, because everyone was thirsty for the new knowledge that everybody needed in order to consult with their passengers, obviously, to see if these
Yep,
trips were even possible or not.
totally. Yep, those were a lifesaver. I know I
Yeah,
joined some of them. Yes.
yeah.
Yep. So let's talk about some of the high-tech innovation maybe you guys have behind the scenes. If I'm not mistaken, you have created kind of your own way of making sure everybody's on the same page, technology-wise,
So technology is it's been a good thing for us and it's been a big challenge for us. You know, we're
hmm
not a technology company, all
right?
right? We're, as you know, service oriented and people oriented. So yes, of course you have to adopt technology.
Hmm.
But because Universal started so long ago, we were working on older systems, not very scalable,
Hmm.
not really integratable with today's emerging technologies, AI, some of the integrations like into scheduling systems and things like that that customers really want to see.
Hmm.
That was one of the reasons why it was a tough decision was to
Hmm.
sell the trip support business
Right.
because of what the path forward to get
Hmm.
it to where it had to be was really beyond our capability as an organization,
Okay.
along with what the FBOs needed and the catering company.
Yep.
So that was the downside of technology for us. It was beyond, and we brought in partners, but the cost was unbelievable,
Yeah. Sure.
and it really wasn't who we are. Now
Okay.
that I've said that, we're now obviously looking at technologies that help the FBOs. Like we're working with Insight FBO One and
Okay.
others, some AI partners and things like that to help us with FBO integrations. A whole nother set for Air Culinaire on their technology because they are integrating into scheduling systems with
Hmm.
menus, custom menus, and food situations. What can you order at this kitchen versus that kitchen?
Sure. Yep.
If we don't have a kitchen, what can the vendors do for you, third party vendors, especially in many international cities?
Hmm.
So that's a big technology play for us now to scale that part of the business. But I'll be honest with you, we're in the middle of it. We don't have it, we're not done.
I love though what you've done with it. So I've gotten a chance to look at some of what you're doing, and I think for our team for sure, but probably for everybody, I love the idea of like I get to see a picture of that catering when it's showing up, like it's in the fridge, and I know exactly what it looks like.
Right.
Um, I know what my ETA is. If it's maybe I'm early, maybe my flight wants to leave an hour early, and I'm like, well, here's where your catering is. You can wait for it or you can be gone. And it doesn't require me calling somebody up who has to try and figure out where that driver is. Anyway, I encourage any of our listeners to go look into that technology you guys are working on. It's great.
Yeah, it's a portal, and then we're coming out with an app too. And when I ask flight attendants about catering just in general, okay,
Yeah.
they say that's one of the most stressful parts of their job is the catering. So, and it is because they don't know if it's going to show up. Is it on time? Is it packaged correctly? So, the more that we can provide those answers through technology versus them having to call constantly or email, the better off it'll be.
Yep.
Yeah,
Love it. They're going to love it too. Yep.
hope so.
So let's switch over more to a little bit on customer expectations, because we did talk about, Universal was first to the industry. Here's what we can do. How has that changed over the years? I guess there's a million ways the aircraft like longer range, like you said. You've got more people in the market, just in general. There's more airplanes flying. What changes have you seen?
So there's a lot of changes in how people operate. Okay, whether, like I said, the type of airplanes, the range, how many tech stops versus non-tech stops, what countries they're going, and the regulatory burden in our industry continues to be a big challenge for everybody. So getting through that. However, in my opinion, you have to break down this complexity into something more structured.
Okay.
And we've always followed a structured sort of process, which would make sense to you. It's, are you mission ready?
Yeah.
Are you even ready for this mission? Do you have the right insurance forms? Do you have the right licenses, the right permits? Then you go and you look at the feasibility. All right, the passenger wants to land at 11 p.m. Okay, fine, but if the airport has a curfew and it's 10 p.m., you can't land at 11 p.m. So it comes down, and I'm giving very high level examples. So the feasibility, okay, is another big part of it. Once you say yes to the customer, you can do this trip at the times your passengers want, then it comes down to the requirements. All right, what are the requirements? Some of the typical stuff, permits and weather briefings and flight plans and filings and fuel coordinations and all that we know. But then in our business, it's not scheduled, it's unscheduled, and there's an average of 4 changes per leg on average.
Really?
Yeah. Just over a course of our history, when we count this, on average, 4 changes per leg.
Yep.
So when you go back in the schedule changes for the 3rd time or the 4th time, you don't have to go back to mission ready, but you almost have to go back to the feasibility place to see, okay, is this now feasible with your new schedule? And then what are any new requirements, or if those requirements are the same, now you have to confirm the time changes. Okay, back to another change. Once all the changes are done, the flight's going, then obviously there's the billing and the invoicing, and then the customer follow-up, like post-trip follow-up. So when we look at this complex world, we've structured it into that kind of a standard workflow that at the end of the day, a flight is a flight is a flight. You just have to manage all of that complexity within a structured process, if that makes sense to you.
Yep, it sure does. And I was just kind of thinking, on a side note, that makes you guys really, since you had so much experience in that makes you very uniquely, set up to accommodate your FBO and the air culinaire side of the business now, because you know what it's like to be on the other side, kind of pushing those changes out to the FBOs and out to the air culinaires of the world.
Oh, absolutely. And so if you just take trip support out for a minute because it's not with us anymore, the FBO, transiting the FBO, is part of that mission. It's part of that workflow. So those 4 changes are going to affect, with the ground support.
Sure.
The 4 changes could affect the catering support. And now is the food, beyond its temperature and it has to be redone again and things like that. So that workflow that I mentioned to you transcends into the FBO side of the business and the catering side of business. That won't change. It's just we have to now take that and work with our friends now in the trip support environment, because we don't compete with them anymore, and make sure that it's all cohesive the same way.
Wow, so interesting. What a transition for you guys. Out of the trip support side of it.
Yeah.
What do you suppose maybe is the hardest part about, I mean, I know you were on trip support before for so long, so I kind of think about that a lot, but what's the hardest part of doing an international trip these days?
For us now,
Yeah, yeah,
there's a couple things. Just because we sold the trip support doesn't mean it's not still important. So we have to find a way to work with the TSS companies,
yeah,
and there is more of a trend where operators are going direct. All
yes,
right, and they're
okay,
not going through trip support companies, especially like easy trips, maybe from New York to London and back and things like
yep,
that. So we geared up where, okay, we've got the TSS companies, that's one channel, and
mm-hmm,
then you've got the directs, which is another channel,
sure,
okay?
yep,
However, having said that, the channel is it's almost a non-factor because it would go into basically the same workflow. It
okay,
would go into the same service level agreements that are negotiated either with the TSS company or the customer direct
okay,
to
yep,
manage those expectations. And
mm-hmm,
the same thing on the catering side. The order management process and the workflow remains the same.
okay, yeah,
So for us, there's not a whole lot of change except now we just have to create new processes and understanding and service level agreements with TSS companies that we historically competed with, but
yeah,
now are more friendly and want
sure,
to work with us.
right.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
that makes sense, right? Because they may have perhaps avoided a universal FBO in the past, and now yeah, again, they're not competing, so they're not going to avoid that. Remind me again, how many universal FBOs do you guys have now?
So total FBOs now is about 30,
Okay,
31 or so in there. We got a couple in the hopper, and then over 45 locations. So
okay,
some of those FBOs that are in a country, they help us operate at different airports within that country too.
got
That's
it.
why the number of locations is higher than the actual FBO locations.
Sure, okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Yep,
and we either own all 100% ownership or we have joint ventures with local partners because in some jurisdictions you need a local partner in order for, to obtain licenses and leases at airports and things like
sure,
that.
that makes sense. Yeah, some
Yeah,
countries don't allow you to purchase land and
no,
officially purchase the land. Yeah, okay,
correct,
that makes
correct.
sense. And just got a fun note. Do you get to go visit all of these places? You get to visit?
I have more so in the past,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, I can go to anyone that I feel I need to. But we
Mm-hmm.
do have, regional vice presidents now and
Okay.
business unit heads in UA and Air Culinaire that kind of pick up a lot of that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and so I do and I don't,
Okay.
but I have the flexibility to, and it is important to show up. It really
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Sure. They'd probably love to see you and visit.
Myself, Greg,
Sure.
Charlie,
Yep.
yeah, they enjoy seeing the leadership team.
Yeah, you bet. I feel like, hospitality and just the passenger's experience, you had talked about that. You get off the airplane, you walk through the FBO potentially, maybe you're getting into the car, transportation of some sort. That's a big deal, right? I always say that I see trips that are executed so perfectly, but then that last piece, if the transportation wasn't right or something happened on that walk from the airplane out to where the transportation is, it can mess up the whole trip. So why do you think that matters so much today? Like it seems like it's more than it ever was.
So the hospitality part of it and the ground logistics,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when we say the customer experience, when we talk about that type of stuff, that's
Mm-hmm.
that's a very broad statement.
Yeah.
Because again, we're almost in this environment of hyper personalization. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example. There are some customers that when they land, they want to use the lounge.
Oh,
They want to go and sit on couches, have a cup of coffee before they leave, or when they're coming in to depart, they want to do these kinds of things.
okay.
So
Yep.
you got to know your customer, right?
Yeah.
Then, okay, so now we have to have lounges. There are some that don't care about a lounge, okay? They either use the bathroom or they want the car right there at the steps of the airplane,
Mm-hmm.
and they're gone. They don't care about what you have in in an
Sure.
FBO, or the chocolate chip cookies that we give or anything like that. So again, it comes down to that kind of profiling. On the other side is you can only manage what you can't control. So
Okay.
we help our customers understand so they can consult with the passengers on what to expect. Again,
Okay.
another example, some locations allows the car to come to the foot of the airplane.
Yes, right.
Then we can do it. Some locations do not, and they don't allow you beyond the security perimeter in the gate. So we let them know that the car is not going to be at the foot. You're going to have to transit the
Mm-hmm.
FBO and the car's on the other side.
Yep.
Or, as you know, parking sometimes in some of these business aviation airports is very challenging.
Yep.
You may have to park way out, and we have to
Yep.
provide a van,
Yep.
okay, to take them through. What we find is as long as the expectations are communicated and
Yep.
understood,
Mm-hmm.
it's acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
What's not acceptable is if they expect the car there and then they end up having to park a mile away and take a van.
Yes.
That becomes the problem. So when we put, under hospitality, and we put things under customer experience, it really comes down to hyper personalization
Mm-hmm.
and the understanding of the environment that we can or can't control, so
Mm-hmm.
that they understand the expectations when they land. Does
Yep.
that make sense?
Yeah, I love just the word of expectations. I mean,
Yeah.
it can cover such a broad range of items, but if both parties understand the expectations on both sides and what they expect to happen, yeah, it's just so much nicer, way less
Yeah, and when
disruptive.
you look at hospitality, we also have to look at it from a persona angle, right? So
Mhm.
when the airplane lands, the passengers have an expectation. Okay, all right, okay, we cater to the passengers, of course, but then the pilots and the flight attendants may have very different, unique needs. Okay,
Yeah.
the flight attendants, when internationally I'm talking about, are worried
Mhm.
about international trash regulations and who can clean linens pretty quick or get the dishes
Yep.
done, or the next caterer coming in. The
Hmm.
pilots are worried about the airplane and fueling and everything else. So you almost have to take down this customer expectation to the persona level,
Sure. Okay.
and that's
Yep.
what makes that hyper personalization so important.
Hmm. Hmm. I love it. Okay, what over all the FBOs that you're working with, is there any like one thing that like the customers like the best? You mentioned chocolate chip cookies. Like I could see that one being as like, oh, I just love the chocolate chip cookies. But do you find something that's like maybe odd that everybody just loves?
Honestly, no, not across the entire
Okay.
globe. I think at the end of the day, what matters throughout, that transcends all cultures,
Mm-hmm.
is how we make them feel. I
Yeah.
come down to that. If they
Yeah.
feel heard,
Mm-hmm.
understood, expectations were met, they were greeted with a smile, took them through properly,
Mm-hmm.
handled any problems, most of them are very happy, and don't worry about the cookies. You
Okay.
know, I mean, seriously, the cookies are more of a nicety.
Okay.
But so I would say it's that human beings taking care of human beings again, that in my 44 years has not changed,
Yeah.
and probably won't change well after me, is the
Mm-hmm.
thing that we focus on the most.
Mm-hmm. I love it. So so important. You're right. Okay, so let's look at future things then. Going ahead in the next 5, 10 years, do you see any trends that you think are going to shape this industry? Anything that's maybe going to change it up a good bit?
Well, technology for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
And I know that we're sort of on the baby steps in AI in our
Yeah.
industry, and I'm no AI expert. As a matter of fact, in the spirit of lifelong learning, I'm taking an AI course
Oh,
as we
really?
speak. Yeah, just to sort of
Cool.
better understand it.
Yep.
But the one thing that is changing, that you may hear even through NBAA and other forums, is airport infrastructure for business aviation. In some areas it doesn't exist, and
Okay. Yeah.
there's more needs for parking space. in many jurisdictions, there's no hangars available for business aviation. So another reason why we sold trip support was to focus on that, because that's a real growing trend. Many customers are coming to us as with we can't find parking. We're going to have to reposition. Is there anything you can do? We want to put our airplane in a hangar because of the elements or whatever. So we're currently in the process of building a new hangar in Spain at Barajas Airport, two
Okay.
in Saudi Arabia that have never existed before for business aviation,
Nice.
and one in Guadalajara in Mexico.
Okay. Yep.
So we're focusing more on airport infrastructure for business aviation because of the reasons I mentioned. It's just doesn't exist in some places. On the catering side, we're looking to grow kitchen locations
Okay.
because we have a lot more control over the quality and the order management rather than going through third parties
Yeah.
that really don't understand the business. They don't have the right packaging for the pilots or the flight attendants for the airplane. Their
Yep.
delivery methods are not so good, and the flight attendants are having to go pick things up. So the more that we can build infrastructure and kitchens in some of these key markets and solve those problems for them, that is where we see the industry going, is more infrastructure catered to business aviation. I know it's a narrow lens because I'm only looking at it from our side. Others may give you a different view and how they see it, but that's our focus going forward.
It totally makes sense. I mean, even the ones that do have some infrastructure, like you mentioned before, these aircraft are way bigger than they used to be.
Yeah,
They just cannot physically fit as many as they used to be able to.
correct. Look at the wingspans on all the new airplanes and everything. So yeah, so hangar space, parking areas, it's a
Yeah.
challenge.
It is.
Yeah.
So cool. Infrastructure. All right, cool. I think we talked about this a little bit, but I was going to kind of touch on the fact that, when technology comes in, you lose that face-to-face relationship. And I guess maybe I'd love to hear just one more time about how important it is to make the other person feel like a human. That piece that you said has never changed over the years.
Right. So the one good thing about the FBO business that we're in internationally, okay, is that AI and technology cannot replace everything. They cannot replace today the meet and greet and meeting someone at the when they get off the airplane and making the passengers feel special and making sure the crew and the flight attendants, everyone's the expectations are met. AI technology, I mean, there's some things maybe you could do before they land, maybe some digital welcomes, things like that. But at the end of the day, we're always going to have that human element in the FBO business. Okay.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, to take it another level, one of the things that customers ask for and which we've accommodated is they want people to actually help them off airport. So we had a service called Air to Ground, which we still have through Universal Aviation, where they're almost like a personal concierge.
Yes.
Yeah, we
We've
help
used
them.
that actually with you guys. It was
Exactly.
excellent. Yes.
Exactly. So you could even see that the customers want a higher level of touch that make them feel, especially in environments where they're not comfortable operating.
Yeah.
If you go to London, for US operators, not such a big deal, but you go to India, you go to China, you go to some of these places, and you have sort of that concierge, that one person to call if
Yeah.
you need something. That is paramount. And I can't see technology taking that on.
Yep.
Okay. On the air culinary side, from what I understand, because I'm not a caterer myself, but the flight attendants, especially in environments that they don't know, and to some degree even the pilots, they want to actually meet the chefs. They want to meet the people that are
Yeah.
preparing the food for them. They want to understand their culinary background and everything else. It's not just some digital assistant or some agent, some robot, which is helpful, okay? But they actually want to go and meet the people, see the kitchen, meet the teams.
Sure.
So, I look at it as of course, there's going to be a place for technology, and it's growing rampantly, right? And we're all
Mhm.
going to have to adopt to it and adapt to
Yeah.
the changes. But that human element, especially in our business, and you could probably say the same for many, is not going to go away. So it's a great challenge to have, but it's also very opportunistic to leverage the balance of both.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. I really agree. I also think that kind of gives hope to people because I think sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, AI and all this technology is just going to take over my job. But
yeah,
really, those soft skills, those are always going to be needed, like you said. I mean, that
ab-
face-to-face communication is still.
absolutely. As a matter of fact, Greg's daughter is getting involved in the business. She's up and coming, and
Oh.
she asked me for, what do you think I should do? I mean, she's very smart and educated. And I told her about the basics. I said,
Hmm.
public speaking,
Yeah.
join Toastmasters,
Yes.
learn,
Yes.
I mean, yeah, I mean, do a lot of the things that people take for granted today. Those soft skills, like you mentioned, how to meet and greet, how to get up and speak in front of people, how to structure,
Hmm.
okay, a dialogue with a customer, a vendor, or partner, whatever. How to use technology, even if you're using chat GPTs and things like that. The prompting of these things includes a human element. You can, I
Yeah.
mean, you can set the tone
Yes.
through AI. You could, say think like an executive or think like a salesperson. You could sort of leverage AI to
Hmm.
as human as you could possibly make it.
Yep.
So those human skills are, even in a world of technology, are going to be paramount, in my opinion.
That's so funny you mentioned the chat GPT because my kids were looking at mine and I put a lot of please. It sounds silly, but I put please into my chat GPT all the time. But for me, being polite and having those polite answers is very important. And so
Exactly.
mine gets trained, you know, to say please.
That's okay. Please and thank you will take you, will help you go a long way.
Right? It
Yeah.
will. Yeah, they laugh at me, but I'm like, I don't need it to come back with some
Yeah.
rude or too direct type of answer. Anyway, that's funny. Yep. Okay, speaking of the next generation kind of coming in, like Greg's daughter and I have kids that I'm hoping will eventually want to maybe get into aviation. They've got a couple more years, but what advice would you give to them about that long-term success and staying in this industry?
So it'll go back to some of the fundamental basics.
Hmm.
Okay. Learn how to communicate. Okay. Respect is extremely important in our business.
Hmm.
Stay humble.
Hmm.
Don't be afraid to ask questions. Okay, the minute any of us think we know it all is when we start to decline.
Yeah.
Adopt lifelong learning. These are the things I mentioned to Sarah, who's very smart. Okay,
Hmm.
um, and just make sure that you make people. It doesn't mean you have to agree with everybody, of course, and make everyone feel good, but
Yeah.
how you make them feel and how you interact with them
Yeah.
is it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't
Right.
matter whether you're entering today or next year or 100 years ago, like me. It really comes down to that. On top of the human element, obviously, you have to stay on the industry, where it's going, and
Yeah.
help shape the organization to go along with it and
Hmm.
or lead it.
Hmm.
Okay, there is a time to follow because you can't be all things to all people.
Yeah.
All right, and there is a time to lead it with your strengths
Okay.
and what customers truly value. So you have to pick and choose what you focus on and what you invest in. You can't
Hmm.
do it all.
Yep.
And don't be afraid to look for partners
Yeah.
out there, because there's a lot of good companies that
Wow.
are in this industry that are very willing to help, that make great third party partners
Hmm.
that you could build a good value proposition around to take care of customers. So that's kind of what I've told Sarah,
Okay.
is you don't have to be a hero. You
Hmm.
know, you just have to be a leader.
I love
And
it.
leading is not telling people. Leading is
Yeah.
leading them to find out answers for themselves, to see it for themselves, and to make them feel like they belong
Mm-hmm.
to something as opposed to taking an order from a boss. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the advice I would give or
The
am
respect.
giving.
Yeah. Huge thing, respect. To understand. Yeah. Work on how you're making them feel,
Yeah.
even if you're delivering bad news.
Absolutely. People
Mm-hmm.
want to be told the truth and honest, and even if it
Yeah.
hurts a little bit, they'd
Mm-hmm.
rather hear the truth than a bunch of nonsense. Yeah. Yeah.
Anything in your career that might have stood out as being just unforgettable? Some.
I would two things, and I won't repeat the whole thing, but it was the culture tour and leading that culture because we did create a lot of differentiated value
Yeah.
and what it took, and it wasn't just me, obviously, but and what it took to lead through COVID.
Yeah. Go for
When,
it.
we went from some real shiny, bright spots
Mm-hmm.
in our history to almost losing the whole thing.
Yeah.
And, it was some daunting days,
I bet.
but we got through. And when we got through, the leadership that it took the team
Mm-hmm.
globally to pull it off were the two things that I'll always remember in my careers of things that stood out, amongst the hundreds of things that we either did right or did wrong. It was
Yeah.
those two.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Outside of aviation, what do you enjoy doing? What lets you, work so hard at Universal for so long, but how do you recharge?
Yeah, and my life's very simple. I love the simple things. I do a lot exercise. I do a lot of walking, biking, hiking. I love that kind of stuff. Again, grew up in the Northeast, so I like to go back and enjoy the four seasons. I don't get the fall season down here, so we
No.
we always go to upstate New York and New England and do
Mhm.
those kinds of things. Family, of course.
Yeah.
I have two grandkids now, so
Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah. So my kids are grown, of course, but two grandkids, and
Nice.
so we're trying to spend more time with them and be part of their lives. And
Yeah.
then non-business travel. It's nice that I've traveled a lot, but you see airports and hotels. I
Yeah.
actually want to travel and actually see a little more than airports and hotels. So
For sure.
it's kind of a simple life, and I enjoy a happy hour every night too, and a glass of wine after a long day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, Ralph, thank you so much for talking with me today.
Oh,
Like,
it was a pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
yeah, I just truly enjoy learning about how people have gotten into this industry, and I think a lot of what you said today was really, uh, like it really hit home for me and my company, and so I think that's probably going to hit home for a lot of people that are listening as well. So yeah, thank you again.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. I hope I added value, and if any of your listeners want to reach out, I'm happy to entertain anything.
Great, that's what I was going to say. So, what is the best way to get a hold of you? Is it like a LinkedIn? Reach out via LinkedIn? Or
You can LinkedIn is fine. I checked that, or you can just simply text. I don't answer phone calls because of these crazy robocalls, but
awesome.
text messaging, WhatsApp, any
Okay.
of those channels, I'm good with.
Okay, sounds good. So I'll pop some of those links down in the details of the podcast so anybody listening can find them. I'll just wrap it up and I want to say to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on another LD Aviation podcast. And if anybody found value in today's conversation, I do ask you please take a moment to like it and share it because this really is how we get it spread out to more of the aviation community. So that's the best way to help us continue doing these podcasts. And until next time, fly safe and stay curious, stay learning, like Ralph said. And we'll see you on the next episode of the LD Aviation podcast.